I watched my friend get shot in the neck. Yeah, that's what happened. I just want to say that he was publicly executed again before the world. The question is why, right?
September 10, Utah Valley University. The sky is unremarkable, the crowd anything but. We see thousands packing the open-air quad, shoulder to shoulder, breathing in the fever dream of American spectacle, waving hats, snapping photos, streaming live. Charlie Kirk sits at the center of it, relaxed in his chair, gesturing through the final beats of his American comeback pitch, when suddenly, a sharp echo splits the air. At first, we're not sure it's real. A single, precise shot from somewhere high above. Heads jerk, students scream. Then the world collapses into a scramble as Kirk falls sideways, blood blooming on his collar, security storming the stage, and fans ducking for their lives. Within 60 seconds, the once viral campus tour is now a ground zero crime scene. Chaos sweeping through the crowd, smartphones shaking as they catch the surreal confusion. In that instant, a new American nightmare is born. Part political assassination, part social media fever dream, and fully charged with suspicion.
And he was publicly executed. I want to make that clear. Charlie Kirk was publicly executed before the world. And as we are all searching for answers, the ones that are being supplied to us are not making a lot of sense. And some people, I would say, are speaking too much, are speaking on behalf of other people.
The nation pauses, trying to catch its breath, but the silence doesn't last. The headlines don't even have time to dry. The narrative splinters. Some see only the sniper's bullet, a lone, cold act. Others insist it's the opening act of a darker, deeper game. But before the conspiracy machine really grinds to life, the world turns its eyes to Kirk's widow, Erika. The cameras find her first at the hospital and later standing with folded hands at a makeshift memorial. She's controlled, dignified, barely letting herself cry in public. Her statement reads with careful resolve. She thanks first responders for their swift and heroic actions and vows that her husband's mission will remain. There's grief, but it's the old-fashioned kind, poised, graceful, an echo of something we'd call class if that word hadn't been wrung dry by 1,000 Fox segments. She looks more like a senator's wife than a tabloid headline, mourning by protocol. Even in the thick of heartbreak, Erika projects composure, steadying their 2 children, determined to preserve not just her late husband's memory, but the respectability of the cause he built. For a split second, we almost believe this will be the style of mourning that prevails. But no, not this time.
Whenever the authority says something and not prod any further. We can't allow that to happen here. I won't allow that to happen here because this something terrible has traumatized the world, okay? And I feel as though when it comes to this, the media, the government, the talking heads, everyone is confusing us about what actually took place with.
Because here comes Candace Owens, not even waiting for the funeral flowers to wilt. She lands like a thunderclap on the right-wing podcast charts. Her face now everywhere. YouTube banners, TikTok reaction edits, trending on X. Her show surges to no. 2 on Spotify, nipping at the heels of Kirk's own slot, outranked by only one ghost. She doesn't grieve quietly. The podcast episode titles sound like subpoenas. Who ordered the hit on Charlie Kirk? And they are lying about Charlie Kirk. She weaves emotion and accusation in the same breath, refusing to let the case be closed by a cleanup crew. Her voice, sharper, angrier, more personal than the news, insists that Kirk was betrayed by his pillow. The phrase lingers, sour, a dagger tossed at Erika Kirk herself. And while Owens never quite points a finger, she dances right to the edge, fueling the split-screen drama. On one side, Erika's composed sorrow. On the other, Candace's volcanic slideshow tributes, each more incendiary than the last. There's no pretending the room isn't divided. The feud is out in the open. Owens, we recall, didn't just lose a friend. She lost her old seat at the table years ago, booted from Turning Point USA after saying the kind of things that would make a Fox Nation intern choke on his kombucha. She claims to have proof that the official story is a fairy tale, that the alleged shooter Tyler Robinson was never seen on any verified video, that the real shooter was on the roof in tactical gear, as if the whole scene were storyboarded by Q or the CIA. Owens fires off claims that the FBI is pressuring Utah authorities to close the case early and that crucial evidence is being ignored. Her argument built as much on doubt as on anything like documentation. She takes phone calls from witnesses who say the shooter's weapon didn't match the one on record, insists the bullet was too fragmented to trace, and points out that Kirk's alleged perpetrator was dressed completely differently than the suspect in custody. Owens thrives on the holes in the narrative, letting her audience fill in the blanks with whatever fever dream they like. She's not just mourning, she's recruiting.
I want to be very clear that I believe, in fact, I know that towards the end, Charlie was fighting for custody of himself. I want to say that. I want to say that plainly, and there are lies that are being told and they need to be slapped down right now.
The numbers say it all. Kirk's own podcast rockets to number 1, a digital shrine hosted by a parade of right-wing icons. Tucker Carlson, Glenn Beck, J.D. Vance, each pledging vengeance or tribute, promising to dismantle enemies in Kirk's name. But Owens won't let any of them script the legacy. Her show is the one that surges behind his, fueled by outrage and the promise that someone in the inner circle knows more than they're telling. We watch as Owens, once the director of urban engagement at Turning Point, then its exiled enfant terrible, leans into her new role as avenging angel, accusing not just the suspect but the entire infrastructure of Zionist-controlled publications, the FBI, even fellow podcasters, of covering up the truth. She claims, again without hard evidence, that Kirk was under threat from Israeli interests, that billionaire Bill Ackman made threats at a Hamptons intervention, and that the official story is pure fiction. Ackman, predictably, posts polite text messages with Kirk as a counterpunch, writing, "At no time have I ever threatened Charlie, Kirk." Netanyahu himself issues not one, but two denials, calling any rumor of Israeli involvement insane and outrageous. But for Owens and her audience, the more these denials pile up, the juicier the intrigue gets.
You're telling me that this kid who's not military trained, this guy, first of all, how did he get to the roof? How come nobody was looking? How come nobody was there's a direct line of sight between where he's sitting and those roofs? You guys didn't check? You don't have a drone? That's insane. So he's on the roof, he shoots, he jumps from the roof, he jumps down 14.
All this emotion is not just coming from nowhere. According to Eric Bolling, who once sat on the Turning Point USA advisory board, Kirk and Owens had their own messy breakup, a quiet rupture years back when, as Bolling puts it, her theories got just a little bit too down the rabbit holes. It was too extreme for TPUSA's taste. And though Kirk by all accounts stayed civil, that cordial friendship cooled to a polite distance. What really stings now is how Owens is lobbing these allegations from outside the castle walls. She's not an insider anymore. Bolling claims she has no relationship at all with Erika Kirk, and that vacuum is now filled with pure hostility. The energy is less old friends at war, more jilted confidants storming the wake. We can't ignore the way the podcast shaped this moment, each voice sharpening the edges of an already fraught narrative. Joe Rogan, usually all bravado and elk-hunting humility, goes off script for a moment, shaken mid-show by news of Kirk's shooting. He doesn't leap to pick a side, but wonders aloud. Maybe he's a patsy. Rogan is more interested in the absurdity of the official story than in the politics of it, questioning how an untrained young man could reach a rooftop, assemble a rifle, and take a perfect shot in broad daylight with no one the wiser. It's a rare show of uncertainty from the podcast king, whose audience is now primed to distrust every word from the FBI or Utah authorities. In a world where suspicion is currency, confusion pays dividends.
The more they keep looking into it, the more they're like, this doesn't feel like a real... It feels super fabricated.
But here's the thing. Just like I was talking about when people are arguing on social media, it's all part of the plan. If you want...
Meanwhile, as the circus escalates, the conservative movement starts cannibalizing itself. Erika's public statements are still pure calm. She appears at the Kennedy Center vigil, quietly thanking Congress, pledging to carry on her husband's mission, her 2 children at her side. But now the blowback comes from the faith community. Rob McCoy, Kirk's own pastor and co-chair of Turning Point's Faith Division, steps up on social media and from the pulpit rebuking Owens by name. He insists Kirk was a friend to Candace and never spoke poorly of her, though he disagreed with her, and scolds her for stirring up gossip and innuendo. McCoy pleads with Owens to act as Kirk would have, mourning in dignity, not accusation, reminding everyone that Kirk never operated nor entertained gossip or innuendo concerning Candace. He warns that if the roles were reversed, Kirk would never have treated Candace or her family in such a way. The pastor's voice is supposed to be the voice of reason, a call for peace amid the blood sport. Instead, it lands like a plea for quiet from the back row at a stadium riot. But Owens does not slow down. She tells her audience, be very wary and suspicious of the people who are already telling us to stop asking questions about the Charlie Kirk assassination. Every time Erika Kirk tries to step above the fray, pledging that Charlie's legacy will not be corrupted by anger, Owens answers with the digital equivalent of a thrown brick. Silence equals complicity, and the real scandal is how quickly everyone wants to move on. At this collision point, we're left staring at the split. The widow standing alone on the stage, refusing to be baited, and the former friend with a podcast microphone insisting the entire show is a cover-up.
Toast. But she didn't call for war. Erika did not call for war. In fact, she did the exact opposite, which is what was so stunning. It was unbelievable. The forgiveness that she granted, the strength that it took for her to call for that forgiveness, it's just unmatched, and it really made a difference. And I was being serious when I tweeted that I think it was the most consequential speech in American history.
An impossible scene to look away from. Whose grief is authentic? Whose crusade is just? Which truth will survive the storm? The one told by the widow, or the one screamed by the outcast who refuses to let Kirk rest in peace? And as Erika pledges again, her voice barely steady, that her husband's voice will remain, Owens calls out to her millions, the only thing more dangerous than a bullet is letting the story end here. In the days that followed, the campus grass at Utah Valley had barely been trampled flat before Turning Point USA roared back into action. Kirk's American Comeback Tour never even missed a beat. No pause for investigation, no real period of collective grief. Instead, it became a showcase for a star-studded roster of conservative personalities, each apparently auditioning for the lead in their own spin-off saga. Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Vivek Ramaswamy, they all descended on campus stages, trading on Kirk's aura and each one crafting their own version of his gospel. One commentator, half in disgust, called it cosplaying Kirk, and we can't unsee it now. It's hard to miss the spectacle. Panels packed with Kirk's former allies, standing beneath banners bearing his image, promising to carry his torch but never quite resisting the urge to hold it higher, as if angling for a better camera angle. There's a chill as the line between tribute and ambition blurs, and Kirk's absence becomes a vacuum that everyone rushes to fill.
And then we installed the most beautiful chandelier. Sconces you wouldn't believe. There's something wrong with them. There really is.
Nowhere was the drama sharper than at Kirk's own memorial, a packed house in Arizona's State Farm Stadium. Tucker Carlson's eulogy didn't just blur the line, it bulldozed it. He invoked not just politics, but prophecy, comparing Kirk's fate to that of Jesus himself, and unleashing a carefully coded remark about a bunch of guys eating hummus, thinking about what to do about this guy telling the truth. Carlson, who knows exactly how to toe a line without crossing it, left listeners to read between the lines, a practice that, these days, seems to be the only real sport left on the right. It was part tribute, part provocation, part wink to the base, and warning to the world. By the end of his speech, it was clear. Whatever unity had existed among Kirk's movement was over. The old alliances were being rewritten, and his legacy had become a prop in a much messier, more personal war.
To do it, because I think there's an irony here. My take on this, there's an irony. Harvey has made his career on busting celebrities that lie when they're arrested, and then this video, this person, that person, and then they bust them. They go, no. Here's what really happened.
That's right.
And now Harvey's in the middle of it, right there, busted, and sitting there in front of the spotlight, the same way he puts celebrities and other people in front of the spotlight. And
as the stages grew, so did the whispers about billionaire influence behind the curtain. Candace Owens zeroed in on Bill Ackman, painting him as a sort of puppet master in the Hamptons, allegedly summoning Kirk for an intervention over his increasingly critical stance on Israel and Netanyahu's war in Gaza. According to Owens, threats were made, though as always, she hedges just enough to leave room for plausible deniability. Ackman wasted no time firing back, posting text receipts of cordial exchanges with Kirk, insisting there was never any threat, never any pressure, only mutual respect, and the normal backroom dance of power and influence. Andrew Colvey, Turning Point's own executive producer, backed up Ackman's account, calling the meeting productive and cordial, not the heated standoff Owens described. And yet, in the haze of rumor and accusation, even denials feel like plot twists. The more the establishment tries to swat down her narrative, the more Owens' audience suspects the fix is in. This wasn't just about one billionaire, either. The speculation around Kirk's Israel position and the money that might have been dangled or withheld only fueled a wider paranoia, a sense that every public stance, every handshake and whisper was about more than what was being said. We watched as right-wing podcasts tried to outdo each other, hinting that Kirk's drift away from pro-Israel orthodoxy was the real reason for his untimely end, while others countered that it was just the latest in a string of opportunistic plays by voices hungry for a bigger share of his audience. The result was a hall of mirrors, every new denial or rebuttal spinning the conspiracy wheel a little faster. Even Benjamin Netanyahu, apparently catching wind of just how far the rumors had traveled, felt compelled to issue two separate denials. The spectacle was complete. Billionaires, foreign leaders, and podcast hosts all locked in a battle to control the legacy of a man whose body wasn't even cold.
Conservative activists, Republican lawmakers, and even a doxing website are flagging the comments in what critics say is a campaign to punish those.
But as the global intrigue played out in podcasts and news columns, the real implosion was happening closer to home. Behind the public tributes and podcast monologues, cracks split open inside the Kirk family itself. According to a pair of sources familiar with his situation, some of Kirk's own relatives, his parents, a few in-laws, had begun to wonder if Erika was keeping secrets. There were questions whispered at the edges of the memorials, suggestions that maybe Erika's calm was too rehearsed, her statements too perfect. Others in the family pushed back, insisting the rumors were baseless, that nothing mattered except protecting the children from a spectacle that was spiraling out of control. Of course, we have no police filings, no on-record admissions, Just the kind of tension that festers in a family when the world won't stop peering through the curtains. For Erika, it must feel like the worst kind of trap. Candace Owens hunting her online, and a movement of supposed allies turning her grief into a spectacle. Eric Balling, still the insider who's just far enough out to speak plainly, frames it as Owens being forever down the rabbit holes. He tells anyone who will listen that Owens has been cut out for a reason, that she's not just a liability to the organization, but a grenade thrown into an already fragile scene. But even that is its own kind of warning. The family's silence now doesn't just look like dignified grief. It starts to look like self-preservation, a shield from an audience baying for answers, or maybe just a shield from each other. Meanwhile, every public word from Erika, each dignified vow, each carefully scripted message, now risks being seen as either the last stand of decency or the calm before an even greater storm.
For information, to research, and to investigate, and nothing is making sense. Now, it could not be making sense because we've not arrived at the conclusion. The FBI, I will say, has recently come out and said they're looking for another person. Good, because what we have so far obviously cannot be it. I feel
While the podcasts and eulogies fight for the loudest echo, Candace Owens ratchets up the stakes again, promising that the whole case is federal-level corruption and conspiracy. She insists that the FBI has pressured Utah authorities to pin Kirk's end on a lone, convenient suspect, Tyler Robinson, even as gaps in the evidence and eyewitness confusion continue to feed her narrative. Owens offers a parade of reasons why we shouldn't believe the official story. No clear video of Robinson on the roof, absurd timelines, witnesses who insist the shooter wore tactical gear. In her words, the authorities aren't just hiding the truth, they're building a cover-up that goes all the way to the top. I'm sure they're not coming out and being honest, she declares, spinning each missing piece into evidence that someone is pulling strings. She claims, "We know who did this, and we want to protect those people, so close the case." Whether that's fantasy, calculation, or something darker, the momentum only grows.
All right, you guys, we're going to jump right into this with no introduction. There's a lot that I would like to speak with you guys about. Can't wait to hear your feedback. A lot of lies that are being put out there, narratives that I would say are half-truths or just misrepresentations entirely.
By now, the narrative is eating itself. The movement Kirk built is splintering under the weight of accusation and counter-accusation. The public feud between widow and would-be avenger rages on. Every new podcast or social post sharpening the divide. Erika Kirk, now half icon, half punching bag, tries to keep her children out of the fray while her late husband's allies fight for relevance or retribution. The church pleads for calm, the podcasts double down. Tucker Carlson finds new metaphors, and always circling at the edges is that unresolved suspicion. Was this about foreign influence, billionaire gamesmanship? Or, as Owens keeps hinting, something unthinkably close to home? It's the kind of scandal that no one can fully script, and every side insists they alone know the truth. We're left watching the smoke rise from the ruins of a movement, a marriage, a media empire. So what really happened that day on the Utah Valley campus? Was Charlie Kirk the victim of enemies abroad, betrayed by insiders with an agenda, or undone by someone who knew him best? And in a world where even grief becomes content, who gets to write the ending? Tell us what you believe. Is this just another political tragedy, or is there something more hiding behind the headlines? Drop your theory in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping revelations. Until next time, keep your eyes open, because in this saga, nothing stays buried for long.